Right, thank you. Welcome to today's Cabinet. Long agenda, which I hope is useful to everybody and that everybody takes part fully in everything we've got to go through, because there's some really important items on the agenda. So today we have apologies from James Walton. Can I have any declarations of interest, please? Okay, I will take those as read and already declared on our register of interests. Can we move on then to the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of December 2025 as a correct record? I would like a proposer. Thank you. And a seconder, Ruth. All those in favour? Thank you. So we now have public question time. We have 4 questions. And the first one is from my ex-colleague, Jeff Elmer. Just press the right hand one. And this is on winter preparedness. And
thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to come and ask this question. I've had lots of complaints from local residents in my constituency in Ellesmere, and this is why I brought this question up. I'd like to know why the winter preparedness plan was not followed this year. The gritting team, as usual, did a good job. Other than that, the plan failed. Who was responsible for initiating the plan? And I would like to know the reason why it didn't happen this year. Why were the council not prepared for winter weather, snow and ice? Why were so many salt boxes empty? Why have they not been refilled from the previous winter? Who should have monitored the levels but didn't? I've been talking to lots of various Shropshire councillors and clerks and so on, and people have acknowledged the plan wasn't followed, but have given conflicting statements as to why. Some have said it's an oversight with too many experienced new councillors and portfolio holders, which I don't think is the case. I think this was deliberate. Some people have said the policy has changed and Shropshire Council will no longer refill salt boxes. Existing boxes will not be replaced and no new bins will be supplied, and town and parish councils will have to buy them themselves in the future. When was this agreed? Devolution of services is only just been discussed, and currently there's no agreement, and we've not had any conversation reference to salt bins. What are the facts? Surely keeping roads safe is an essential responsibility of Shropshire Council. Residents in rural areas are unable to help themselves because they were not given the tools and the equipment to enable them to do so. Fix my street requests to refill the bins were not actioned in time. Overall, it was simply not good enough. Please, could whoever's in charge resolve matters for this winter, and I'd like to know exactly what the actual system should be. I've been talking to various town clerks, and they're totally unaware of whether they're meant to be responsible or not. I'd like to know if this was done on purpose and a risk assessment was carried out or not. It took 10 days after consistent chasing with myself and with a local councillor to get a quarter of a bin of salt filled up. When you turned up as a quarter of a bin, that was it. So I know there's problems with finance, but my main concern is there are confusion with this. Nobody seems to know what the policy should be. Thank you.
So I would like to ask the portfolio holder for highways, David Basmer, to reply, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for your question.
Okay.
I would like to start by just reiterating the Met Office issued an amber warning for Shropshire. The designation of this from UK's National Weather and Climate Service is that there was a high likelihood of significant impact and of widespread disruption, and reflects the inability of the council to be everywhere at once. It should also be noted that the current level of service reflects the balance between service and available resources. However, in spite of this amber warning across large parts of the county and the challenges presented, I'm pleased to say the response from Council Highways team was widely acknowledged as being extremely effective, which played a big part in keeping our communities and roads users safe. In response to the question, Shropshire Council has established winter maintenance policy and operational plan, which sets out how we deliver what is a core frontline council service. I confirm that we have approximately 2,400 grip bins at key locations across the county, all of which were visited and restocked prior to the winter period. All of these were photographed before and after refilling, with all actions recorded in our asset management system. During the course of this severe winter period, we had 2 dedicated teams refilling grip bins across the county, and we have refilled 844 grip bins since the start of November. I would also like to confirm that grip bins that meet the criteria will not be removed, and any new requests will be considered in line with the assessment criteria, as is the case at the present time. I note that no specific locations referenced in the code. These can be provided along with dates and time for looking for specific concerns raised. I hope this illustrates that there's been a change in approach. If anything, winter preparedness has been strengthened. We always review the winter service following each winter period and will be capturing any concerns and feeding them into that process. We recognise that there is always room for improvement and learning opportunities, but I'd like to stress that we've received widespread praise for the winter maintenance service this year. I'd like to thank all the staff who work long hours in cold and difficult conditions to keep people safe.
Thank you.
You have a supplementary if you would like one, Jeff, because we've reintroduced that.
Well, we need to address the concern of why are clerks in the dark? I've got clerks telling me that they have advised their residents to write to Shropshire Council when they've requested a salt bin, and Shropshire Council have written back to the resident to say, nothing to do with us, you need to talk to your local town council. So there seems to be some confusion, and that's what's really, really annoying me. And I think everybody needs to know exactly what should happen and make sure it does happen. That's my main concern. There is confusion somewhere along the lines, and I think maybe people are very scared to spend money, and there's a good reason for that. Maybe when they fill salt bins, they were like filled up to a quarter, 3 or 4 shovelfuls. That's it, not filled. So, you know, is it? I know it's cost cutting, whatever, but my main concern is what is the system? What is Ellesmere Town Council meant to do when somebody asks them for a salt bin?
Right, Jeff, thanks for your supplementary. I'd just like to say, firstly, that we're working towards the winter maintenance programme that you were involved in, and in the previous administration. And so, we obviously need to improve upon that. And we're reviewing the winter maintenance programme, and future meetings of this cabinet. And I'll be delighted to receive any information you've got about the problems you clerks have received about getting grip bins filled. So please let me know. I'd just like to say that I think there's 20 grip bins in Ellesmere Town Centre area, and we hope to get them filled by the end of this week. So thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. I will keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, in which case we now move on to the next question, which is from John Palmer, re-COVID and its impact.
Thank you, Chair. Shropshire Council's strategic risks grid, due its biannual update in February, looks to have a glaring omission. Nowhere does another pandemic explicitly feature on it. Its absence is telling. Is it complacency, optimism bias, groupthink, Shropshire exceptionalism of the Cabinet for not raising this with current management? The recent Module 2 reports of the COVID-19 inquiry, published 20th of November 2025, analysed the crimes of too little, too late by most in authority. At least 700 people died of COVID-19 in Shropshire. That statistic is from the Director of Public Health's annual report 2020 and 2021. Where's the local accountability for what happened? Have local decision makers of the time Conservatives ever publicly apologised and expressed regret. The local health infrastructure has been in crisis for years and still is. And Shropshire Council's decline in staff numbers across a broad range of crucial disciplines does not bode well come the time, especially if we were to face an increased poisonous influence from the anti-vax, anti-lockdown, let it rip, divisive minority of the far right.
So I invite Bernie Bendick to answer the question for John, please.
Thank you, Mr. Palm, for your question. We recognise the profound impacts of COVID-19 on our communities, and we continue to take pandemic preparedness seriously. In July 2023, following discussion at the June 2023 Strategic Risk Workshop with the Executive Management Team, the Council archived the specific COVID-19 strategic risk because at that point, COVID-19 was no longer assessed as having a strategic impact on our ability to deliver services. This does not mean pandemic risk is ignored. By definition, the Strategic Risk Register focuses on risks that could fundamentally affect the Council's ability to achieve priorities, deliver statutory duties, or maintain critical services. We continue to monitor and review the risks regularly, including review if pandemic threat was to become more imminent. In that case, a strategic risk could be reviewed with a view to reinstate the strategic risk due to the increased likelihood of impact on staff, services, and finances. In the meantime, we continue to put in place controls to prepare for future pandemics. We will continue to horizon scan, drawing on national and international guidance, emerging research, and advice from professional management bodies, so that our controls and our plans remain current. This includes learning from findings from the COVID-19 inquiry, which covers decision-making by the UK government. Operationally, we have a multi-agency rapid response group, which can stand up at short notice for any new or emerging infections. Our health partners have commissioned services to provide outbreak response capacity, including swabbing, prophylaxis, and treatment where appropriate. Pandemic-related risks are currently managed through our operational and emergency planning arrangements, rather than through the strategic register, reflecting how the risk is best owned and controlled day to day. We have recently updated our pandemic plans with partners, and we have a Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin health protection strategy with the detailed pandemic response covered by the pandemic plan. And we continue to run programs to increase vaccination uptake across our communities. Importantly, pandemic and novel infectious disease remains the top risk on the local resilience forum, community risk register, and is also acknowledged as a top-tier national risk. We have maintained a health protection cell function, which manages infectious diseases locally and was put in place as a result of the pandemic, increasing our resilience. We continue to test plans and strengthen readiness. In summary, while COVID-19 no longer appears as a discrete strategic risk, Pandemic risk is actively and rigorously managed through the most appropriate mechanisms, our operational stroke emergency planning and the multi-agency resilience arrangements, backed by regular exercising and continuous horizon scanning. During the pandemic, Shropshire was following national instructions regarding how to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. In terms of recognising the impact on local communities, in the same annual report, which you highlighted, it was clear that it has been a challenging and difficult year. And from the 1st of April 2020 to the 17th of January 2022, sadly, 703 people lost their lives to COVID-19 in Shropshire. These deaths are not numbers. They are people who were loved by their families and friends, and those families and friends are now living with that loss. We also recognise the teams and colleagues across the council and our partners in the public and private sector and our voluntary and community sector who worked tirelessly during that period. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Would you like a supplementary, John?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very indebted for such a full answer, which I'll be studying line by line. My follow-up question is, so how many of Cabinet read the whole circa 800 pages of the Module 2 reports?
Bernie, would you like to answer that?
Thank you for the supplementary question. We'll have to respond to you once I've consulted with Cabinet.
Thank you very much. And now we have a question on road safety audits from Christopher James.
Thank you for that. I wasn't hoping to be here, but I find myself coming because I wrote to the council on the 24th of October about this, and after a month I didn't have any reply. So I submitted a complaint about not receiving the reply, which I was told would be within 10 days. I still have received no reply, and yet my complaint has been closed on your system. So that may be something the system needs looking at. My question relates to the railway station gyratory project, which is obviously a hot topic. And my question was, up to the end of last year, 2025, were any road safety audits carried out for the project? And if not, why not?
Thank you. We go to Rob Wilson, and you will be aware we've done a whole load of scrutiny on this as well. So
yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. After consulting with officers, I can confirm. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, because it was on your question, if you can share details of that complaint you raised, I'm happy to follow that up for you to find out what went wrong. I'll follow that up with Council Wagner as well, who's in charge of that area. So we'll follow that up. Okay. But in answer to your question, sorry, I can confirm the formal road safety audits on the station directory were undertaken as follows: Stage 1 in October 2023, Stage 2 in February 2024, and interim Stage 3 has been instructed in December 2025, and dates from the independent provider are awaited. Just to clarify that for those listening in, Stage 1 is for preliminary design, Stage 2 is the detailed design, Stage 3 is post-construction, that's the interim report that we've commissioned, and Stage 4 would be when all work has been completed, and that's usually 12 months after for post-opening monitoring, and that's to review collision data performance with interim audits possible at any time for modifications. These audits use independent teams to identify and mitigate potential hazards for all road users throughout the project's life cycle.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Just a minor detail, really. You had the task and finish group that went through it clearly in detail, and one of their recommendations was to do a safety audit. Has that been commissioned? That's the one that's been commissioned.
That's the interim stage 3. It's been commissioned. I think I share the views of many people that the way this project's been conducted wasn't good enough. I'm really disappointed that stage 1 and stage 2 in those road safety audits, the problems that have been identified weren't picked up. There is a problem with that. So there's a lot of work to do to get this right. We don't want to make knee-jerk choices. We do need to get it right for residents.
Okay, and is there a report? Sorry, supplementary number 2, maybe sort of.
Yeah.
Is there a date for that report to come out?
We're waiting the dates back from the provider, so we've commissioned it. We're waiting for that back, and we'll share that as soon as it's available.
Thank you very much.
And it is important that that's public, and it was very important that the task and finish was public, so that we all learn from it, not some people behind the scenes, and the public who are justifiably very concerned about the whole thing are kept in the dark. So everything will be there for you to see.
Thank you very much.
And the last question is from Megan Frost about the Shrewsbury Sports Village. Good morning.
Chair of the Shropshire Amateur Swimming Association. So my question is, Rachel, do you mind just helping me put her microphone on?
Thank you. Given the importance of swimming facilities for both physical and mental health, safety and community well-being, could the Cabinet please explain the specific reason that has led to the decision to pause the new Sundawn swimming pool project, including the factors that have changed since last month's meeting when it was passed through scrutiny, and what evidence can be used to justify the pause? Also, what criteria will determine whether and when the project proceeds?
Thank you very much. And if you weren't aware that you have a follow-up question, do have a think about it. Okay. James.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. Since before the paper went to scrutiny, I and many others have had concerns around the proposed options for financing the project. We carried out various due diligence checks and in discussion with Cabinet have concluded that the current finance options which were described and visualised between 5.7 and 5.9 in the scrutiny report are not affordable for the Council at this time. Our position remains that the rationale for the project still stands and the proposed scheme is strong. However, we must accept that this authority cannot currently afford the revenue implications of the borrowing needed to cover the cost of the building of the facility. For this scheme to progress, the Council is likely to require a significant amount of the costs, if not all, to be funded via external grant funding, available SIL receipts and community fundraising. Clearly, a price tag for this makes it a steep hill to climb, however anything is possible. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the hard work of all the staff and stakeholders involved in bringing the project closer than it has ever been.
The follow-up.
So I guess my follow-up is, what's your fallback position when the quarry is closed due to leaks in the pool, as one is at the moment, roof falling in? Where are children going to learn to swim when you either have to spend years fixing the quarry or even further years building a new pool?
Thanks.
We have to say that there's currently no plans to close the quarry. Like, that is one decision that we have sort of come to a conclusion as a Cabinet that we are currently unwilling to make. I know.
It's closed because it's children can't get in to swim. It's leaking and roofs falling off. So you have to close it for safety.
I think at that point we know that that is a risk, so we are approaching options that could be used to mitigate that. We have obviously we need to allow children through primary schools to swim, so there would be alternatives through private ventures that we would have to look into at that point, but that would still come cheaper to us than having to borrow for the whole project currently. So given the financial position, that's what we're having to currently look at. But we're also trying to make sure that we do invest in the quarry to try and reduce the risk of that happening anytime soon.
Thank you very much, and very pertinent questions. And I thought long and hard about swimming because it's such an important part. And you will know that Ruth and I have been very involved in raising money towards a much more sustainable pool in Bishop's Castle. So it's not that we're not on your side, it's the position we're in. Borrowing 29 million when we know that the borrow we have to do, and you will have seen in later papers, will actually cost us more in loan repayment and so on than we have coming in from council tax, because of the settlement and all of those things. So we're in a really difficult position. So it's not that we're not still signed up to this. It's just that we're not in a position where we can actually raise the money at the present time. But we will look at other options. We will look at, I mean, if we find a way we can fund it without borrowing the money, we will be doing that. So we're in that period of actually reviewing and looking at alternatives, because you're right, the quarry is a risk and has been a risk for a very long time. As long as I've been on the council, we've had problems with the quarry. So it's not a closed thing. And just to come back on a number of these questions, which I'm really grateful for, because actually it's important that we're asked those questions. And I thank Rob for following up the governance issues around asking questions and complaints and so on, because it's a really important learning point for us, and we are trying to tighten up on that at the present time. So I'm really sorry that you weren't part of the tightening up on this occasion. What I must also say is that we're looking really long and hard at how we communicate with towns and parishes for Jeff, because the communication across the board for a very long time has not been good enough. And we do need to be making sure that everybody knows what's going on. There have been no decisions about grit bins and so on at the moment. It's about the winter review. And we will be talking to people about that. We will always be supplying grit where we can, but it is part of the winter review. So very valuable questions, and I thank you all for asking them. So we now move on, thank you, to member question time, and we have 3 of those, and we should have Julian Dean. It says in person, energy planning and response, energy and planning. Yes, please. Can you read it out, then, please?
Okay, so the question from Councillor Julian Dean. In 2023, the Marches LEP invited a partner to develop a local area energy plan. Meanwhile, the West Midlands Combined Authority is developing an LAEP. Also in the pipeline is the development of regional energy strategic planning. Could the relevant portfolio holder provide an outline of strategic or area energy planning that is taking place for Shropshire? Can this help to determine appropriate sites for energy-related development in order to reassure communities that sustainable energy infrastructure proposals are not simply speculative, but will make a well-planned contribution to the local and national transition to clean energy? Will strategic energy planning inform the development of the new local plan? What steps can and will Shropshire Council take to ensure maximum local benefit from future energy-related developments, for example, through partnerships, direct ownership, or support for community-owned energy developments?
So, can I ask Councillor David Walker to reply, please?
Chair, thank you, Julian, for your question. The proposed NPPF, currently subject to consultation by MHCLG, sets an expectation that local planning authorities use their local plans to identify areas which are suitable for renewable and low carbon energy development and electricity network infrastructure. Shropshire Council will be setting out its timetable for the preparation of the new local plan in spring this year, and we will be looking for early public consultation on the local plan in the summer. To inform this, the Council will be looking at available evidence, as well as the need to commission further evidence to inform the plan making process. Should areas of land be identified for future energy provision, including through renewable and low carbon sources, communities will have an opportunity to have their say as part of future local plan consultations. In addition, the Council will continue to engage with strategic partners, including the West Midlands Combined Authority, regarding the production of local area energy plans to align with Shropshire's new local plan. Under the Council's role within our cross-border Marches Forward partnership, we've been leading a programme focused around green growth. This involves joint working across the water and energy sector to align infrastructure and investment planning. National Grid and Scottish Power Energy Networks are actively involved in this work, and through their innovation teams are helping to shape joint positions for future investment across the Marches region. The first phase of this involves feasibility work to understand the energy generation opportunities from water management interventions using the Severn Valley Water Management Scheme as a case study. This work is being funded following award of a grant from the Midlands Net Zero Hub and will provide a basis for wider joint working to unlock the energy company's innovation and investment programmes. Longer term, this work is leading to the establishment of a Marches buyer and investment panel with Scottish Power and National Grid already indicating interest in joining. In addition, the strategic partnerships team are using their connections to focus on joint working options specifically for Shropshire. The energy companies are seeking more information from the council on the future pipeline for growth and infrastructure investment. This will allow more proactive engagement by the energy sector on future energy infrastructure needs and assist in aligning investment asks and programmes. One current area of interest from this work is the Ulster Innovation Park and exploration of potential future employment uses and how these could be energy generation to provide local community benefit.
Thank you. We don't have Julian with us, so it's difficult for a follow-up question from the member. In which case, I will now move on to a question from Councillor Harry Hancock Davis, and I think Dawn. It says here that Dawn was going to read it, but Harry's here, so I didn't know whether you were using Dawn as a speaker.
Thank you. Good morning, Cabinet. Following the fraud investigation motion that was put forward at full council in September 2025, and noting that there has been little progress brought forward since then, can the Cabinet confirm whether they are committed to commissioning a task and finish group to explore the fraud investigation options that were put forward to Audit Committee in November? Thank you.
Roger.
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Councillor Hancock Davis, for your question. I was present at the council meeting when the motion was referred to the Audit and Governance Committee. As I remember, this was agreed without debate. I do note that the amount of information that was in your original motion and can confirm the number of staff employed by this council in procurement, which you particularly highlighted, is to be increased. Following that council meeting in September, it was of course placed on the 27th of November agenda of the Audit and Governance Committee. I was again present when it, together with additional information, including a number of potential delivery model options, was debated. Unfortunately, I have not yet seen the minutes of that meeting and hence the resolved decision the committee made, but do note the contents of your question. I am informed a report is being prepared and it is to be added to the forward plan for the March Cabinet. It will be a matter for Cabinet to decide at that point whether to set up, as I again understand it, a requested task and finish group. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Harry, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you. That's great, Roger. Thank you for the information. Thank you.
Super, thank you. So we now move on to a question from Craig Emery, and Duncan Kerr, who's online, is going to read the question about signage and white lining. Will you?
Yes. Thank you, Heather. So the question reads, like many Shropshire residents, I welcome the administration's focus on tackling potholes across our road network. However, could Cabinet members give an update specifically on when the same priority will be given to ensuring signage and white lining is available at all road junctions? Some residents have contacted me in Salatin and Gombowen concerned at the lack of at both accident hotspots where residents have witnessed cars driving straight over junctions, such as Pentadaffyd crossroads and other crossroads in Hengoed. At a recent parish council, concerns were also raised that white lining is being completed on top of loose chippings, meaning that any white lines often disappear within a year. What plans are in place to address these concerns, as Fitzmy Street doesn't seem to be prioritising the concern of residents? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're back to David Basmer again for highways.
Thank you, Heather. And thank you for the question, Councillor Emery and Councillor Curtis, for being here today online. We have an annual programme of road marking replenishment, which is informed by highway safety inspections, local knowledge, customer inquiries, and other local data. The maintenance of ad hoc road marking replacement is revenue costs, unlike pothole repairs, which are predominantly a capital cost. The road marking replacement budget therefore faces continual budget pressures and is regrettably insufficient to keep pace with worn road markings that require refreshment. Therefore, prioritisation is essential for renewal programmes and an ongoing process for the highway service to maximise work outputs to available budget. Junction markings are one example of safety critical work that will be higher priority, with the most severe examples being undertaken first. If Councillor Emery and Councillor Kerr can provide specific locations, and I think Councillor Kerr mentioned them just now, specific locations for the parish council, these will be investigated and updates will be provided. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I don't know whether Duncan, Councillor Emery, who provides you with a supplementary.
No, there's no supplementary. Thank you very much to Councillor Basmer for the answer. Thank you.
Can I have a supplementary?
Indeed.
Will this be part of the review for any new contract or bringing things in-house or any of those things? So it will be reviewed or not?
Yes.
Yes.
It will be part of that, and there will be a paper coming forward to Cabinet, which will deal with this.
So there may be hope for the future. Can you relay that, Duncan? Thank you. Right. Thank you. In which case we've now finished the member questions, and we don't have any scrutiny items today. So we move now on to the draft financial strategy, and I'll ask Roger Evans to present, please.
Thank you, Leader. Item 6. This is a draft MTFS, medium-term financial strategy, with a number of updates included in it, showing the Council's updated position. As the report states, the last document with this name was presented in October. We have had a number of financial monthly updates since then, and we will be using the soon-to-be-released information contained in the Q3 updates to produce the final version in February. We have continued to try and ensure that all predictions for the 2026-27 year will be deliverable, and the previous optimism bias has been removed. To deliver this MTFS will of course depend on the government agreeing to our request for exceptional financial support for both this year and next year. The request for next year is, as stated in this report and in previous reports, of course, asking permission for this council to borrow up to £130 million. We still wait to hear if this is to be granted. Appendix 7 gives an indication of how the gap could grow during the following years. At present, to be noted is that the EFS request is only for this current year and next year. To be welcomed is that government has indicated it is their intention to give a 3-year indication of how it is to provide funds for all local authorities. What has not helped this council, and also a large number of rural authorities, is that the financial settlement announced by the government just before Christmas, our reply to the consultation on that proposed settlement is attached at Appendix 9. Included within our reply is a copy of an analysis made by the Rural Services Network and also included and labelled as Graph 1 in this report. The RSN is an independent support network who have analysed the government's December announcements, and the graph shows urban authorities receiving 41% more help per head than most rural ones in 2026-27. A consultation on the budget proposals was launched on the 12th of December and was closed on the 16th of January. Findings from this will be reported in February and will be used to help us produce the final MTFS. I repeat the message that is made many times. We will need to and will be making a number of tough decisions during the coming months and develop a financial sustainable strategy, and I propose a recommendation set out in part 3 of this report.
Thank you very much. I will second that and reserve my right to the end. So, do we have questions, please? Or any thought?
First, I do want to recognise that the this current government's refusal to actually tell the council what we're going to be allowed to do is a major issue, and I do understand that that's making things very difficult for everybody with regard to decision making. But we have significant concerns about the amount of money that this council continues to spend on feasibility studies and due diligence, which is mentioned repeatedly in the published report. We've been unable to access these contracts to challenge and scrutinise these costs, their effectiveness or value for money. At a time when the council has cut grant funding to local community groups, I'm very concerned to see the council allocating millions to these things. What I'd also like is assurance from the council that whilst you are increasing capacity, which we understand is necessary to be able to provide the services that we need to, in the organisation, that particular emphasis will be put onto ensuring that building internal competence is a top priority to ensure that we no longer need to keep going out to external parties except in exceptional circumstances, which I do recognise do sometimes occur. It is not acceptable that we cannot scrutinise these external parties thoroughly and are unable to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger, would you like to reply?
Thank you for the question. Can I say this council is trying to be as open and transparent as possible. I understand some inquiries are proceeding and there will be reports going forward to future scrutiny committees on some of the points that you raise. Please bear with us in the meantime whilst we try to ensure that this council does continue to operate as the council we all wish it to be for the next few years. We are making decisions, we are increasing the competence and the availability of staff in some departments who we feel are not able to deliver what we all want because of previous decisions. Decisions will improve and they will be accountable, and please, if there is anything there, come back and I will endeavour to answer them.
Thank you. Any more questions? I have so have you decided, Dan?
The figures speak for themselves. Urban councils now receive 31% more funding per head than rural authorities like ours. Any increase in our core spending is driven entirely by asking our residents to pay more council tax, while our actual government funding is reducing in real terms. This isn't a failure of local management, it's a rural penalty imposed from Westminster. The previous administration had the courage to set ambitious targets. We hope this cabinet continues to stand up for Shropshire against the national government that is clearly leaving our rural communities behind.
Thank you. Was there a question in that, Dan?
If I can, Chairman, I will take it to part in that. Please look at this Appendix 9 that's there. Hopefully you will be supporting that and use any influence that you have to actually try and improve the settlement when it is announced in February over and above what was announced in December and also in the following years.
Thank you. Rosemary.
Thank you. We in the Labour Group support a robust response to the government's draft settlement, stating clearly the difficulties and the problems that we face in Shropshire. But what a position this is. So far, we've asked the government for 27 million and 71 million and 130 million pounds worth of support. That's 230 million of additional borrowing, 200 million of it just to get us to the end of this financial year and enable us to set a budget for the coming year. So that gets us to March 2027. Following that, the MTFS takes us into the next decade with ever greater assistance required. Put simply, this doom-laden future is not sustainable. We will be asking the taxpayers of Shropshire for years to come to fund an ever greater loan book with absolutely nothing to show for it. The position has been bad for a number of years when large savings have been achieved, but with little to no impact in putting the council on a track to sustainability. The last administration planned, but never really got to grips with transformation. Lots of discussion about it, but nothing really concrete. The picture appears to have worsened in the last 9 months. The voluntary redundancy scheme lost us many a good officer at a high cost. The senior management team was trimmed down to save ongoing cost as part of transformation, but this has been reversed. Now the council is recruiting because the VR project has left the council so denuded in some areas it's unable to function at a basic level. It's clear the VR project was not effective and not well managed. The council must be able to carry out its activities effectively, so these decisions are understandable, but it seems like costly firefighting, or is it, in fact, part of the transformation? Is sustainability in view, or is it even in the distance, or are we looking down a tunnel with no light?
I've got Roger and then Alex wants to add something.
I'll see what others have to say, but can I say from my position, sustainability is in view, and that is what I am working for, and what this cabinet and this council, I would hope, and officers are working towards. We do not and will not accept, if at all possible, anybody else coming in to tell us what to do. To do that, we do need to be sustainable, and that's what we are aiming to do.
Right, okay, I've got Alex, I've got Rob in the room, and I have Duncan on screen. I think I'll take Duncan first because I've had the other group leaders. So Duncan.
Yeah, obviously I support a lot of what's been said. I think it is, to use an analogy that Rosemary used, a very long and a very dark tunnel. And when we do get out the other end of it, I fear we've just been in a world where we just provide social services and very little else. So what's happening behind the scenes here is that the government is effectively funding the significant increase in social care, which is driven by demand, by the council tax. But we know the council tax is a very regressive tax. Yes, the people in welfare houses pay a little more, but proportionally they don't pay anywhere near as much more if it was funded from income tax, or indeed, dare I mention, it's a wealth tax or some other form of taxation. So you're having a situation where the poorest of our community are having to pay more to pick up services like that. And I think this is an issue, because it's not just an issue for Shropshire, it's an issue across the country. And I feel the LGA, and I know, Heather, you're involved in the LGA, but they do need to be making this point that the government has to prioritise and meet nationally the social care crisis from national taxation, not from local taxation.
Thank you. Was there a question in that, Duncan? Or
do you agree?
Do we agree? Alex.
Yeah, very good, Duncan. I think to continue the sort of transport analogy, you're talking about heading down a tunnel or going in the wrong direction. You know, if you're driving the wrong way, you can't just like yank at the wheel in the middle of the road. You need to slow down and stop, maybe get some petrol or plot a route to where you're going. I kind of think that's what we're trying to do with this, and this plan proposes some pretty modest savings next year in order to actually build the capacity to change. I think there's a few things that are on my mind I wanted to sort of make public, if you like. One is something that's a really important bit of work is most of our spend, almost all, but not all of our spend is already statutory. It's care services like Councillor Quay was just describing. There's a really useful appendix to this report, which is the Children's Services Benchmark Report from the LGA. I think what it shows is though Shropshire does spend overall due to demand more than some of its neighbours. We already have very low unit costs, and you know that's a service which is, I think, coming on a fifth of our budget. I think adult social care and other teams are currently undertaking the same work to really understand whether or not there are significant ways of making savings and transforming those teams. The move that we've spoken about previously to a zero-based budget, I think is vital to doing that. And I think that making sure we have those low unit costs, even if we accept that demand in Shropshire for looked after children and vulnerable adults is higher due to demographic nature, is important to understanding what we can do with our remaining funding. And what I think it's important to note about the EFS application, which is absolutely necessary, is we are now in the position where any non-discretionary spend, or any non-statutory, we are not actually funding ourselves. You know, in essence, all of that spending is now being funded by borrowing with interest rates set by central government, which they expect us to pay back. We are already clearly not cutting our cloth to the level that is expected based on the financial constraints that we're in. A couple of other points I thought were worth making is we're looking at a £15 million transformation programme next year. We need to be very clear that is not about bringing in external consultants. That is primarily about assessing those metrics in care, zero-based budgeting, and trying to move towards a model where we can keep those costs as low as possible, accepting what is staggering demographic growth of nearly £60 million over the next 4 years if it isn't contained. I think we have taken the view that we clearly have taken a wrong turn, and so we will spend what we need to change the council over the next year or so on grounds that if we continue going down the route we're going, I think there is some certainty in a really bleak future. If we change our approach, we create far more opportunities to make those savings and bring us towards sustainability, if not making us fully sustainable. That may include short-term specialists, but it doesn't have to. And certainly we're keen to do as much in-house and work on replenishing those teams. Procurement was mentioned earlier in this meeting, which have been drawn down so that they can actually do their job and raise us the income we need to and maximise all of those opportunities. I think as a final point, all I'd say is we need to be really conscious as a cabinet, but also widely as members. You know, the cost of discretionary spending now, anything above and beyond those statutory services, which I think Councillor Kerr was referring to in his question/comment most prominently, we are not paying for. That is not being funded by council tax. That is not being funded by central government. That is pure borrowing. And I'm in that headspace when I think about the teams that I'm involved with and the services that we're running. I think as a whole council, we need to be aware that we have to be quite strict about exceptions. There has to be a really, really strong case if there are going to be any. And also, we do need to pursue devolution and partnership, but we want any chance of some of these services surviving or even thriving over the coming years. So I'll leave it there, but I just wanted to make those points clear. I think in particular the appendices for this item are worth going through for a good understanding of the way the council is currently put together.
Thank you. I now have Rob Wilson.
I think there's a very good question in what's changed. I think everyone knows the situation we were in before Christmas, that and leading into Christmas, the situation was very poor. I think the settlement announcement from the government just rips the rug out from under you, really. That MHCLG, Ministry of Housing and Communities and Local Government, know the situation with Shropshire Council. They've known it for a very long time. The Department for Transport knows the issues we have with ongoing projects such as the North West Relief Road. That's the first action the leader and deputy leader took when they came to office in May. We're still waiting for an answer on that. So these kind of decisions from government that we're waiting for are really, really important for us, and it's leaving us with few choices to make. I think particularly that settlement basically says that the government is tone deaf to our problems. I read in there that the Guardian has some reporting last night about the actions that, particularly in Liverpool, the MPs there are taking. They've all written to the Secretary of State, and they are, according to the reporting, threatening to vote against the government on its settlement when it comes to the House of Commons. And I hope that all our MPs will fight for Shropshire and stand up for Shropshire when it comes to that point, because this is about Shropshire. It's not about particular parties. This is about our county and us being sustainable. I think we as cabinet, and I've heard the same from group leaders, we're united on that front. We need our MPs to speak up for us in that way.
Thank you, Rob. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Wagner, for some really helpful comments around the social care independent reviews that have been undertaken. The children's one is an appendix to this report. It's been really helpful to have a look at what we can do, and since we've had that, we have done some significant work, and the action planning for that is included in our Family First partnership approach, which will be live from April. The adults report will be available next month, and we'll be very happy to share that once we're just checking final checks for accuracy. I do say, I concur with Duncan actually, I really hope very much that this council is not just a deliverer or provider of social care. We have so many skills and expertise that we need to deliver what is best across the whole of the county, across all areas, and social care is not the only statutory function. We are working with our health colleagues around on the ICB around plans going forward, around continuing healthcare. We are looking at working with some charity and community groups about how we can promote prevention and early independence. In fact, yesterday a group came to me with a very helpful proposal around supporting people very early on in their care pathway, and that's something to explore further. And the staff in both services, children and adults, have worked very hard on delivering savings, possibly at the expense of having enough time to focus on the transformation projects, and that aspect will be addressed in the bid that's been put in for exceptional financial support. And I always say at this point that we should celebrate aging, really aging well. We're getting older, and this county has a much higher than our UK average number of people over 65 and a growing number of people over 85, and they are entitled under the legislation to care and support, and that's what we deliver. We don't do the fancy bits or the extra bits, we deliver what's required under the Care Act legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. James.
I think I might need to rename my portfolio to housing and discretionary spending at this point, but given the leisure side of it is mostly, there's statutory parts of it that are very important, and a lot of it is important to deliver as a council for preventative, but what we're being told is we can't deliver that, so we do need volunteer community organisations, town and parish councils to approach us, as well as us approaching them, to try and deliver these services to make sure that they don't disappear, because even if they are there, they might be at such a low level that they're not actually having the impact that they do need to have. So I just want to again make that plea to as many organisations as possible to keep an open mind and see where they can help us on this.
Roger.
Thank you, Leader. I think you've heard how united the Cabinet are to take this council forward and return it to sustainability. But we do need as much help as possible from all the different political groups and all their contacts to make sure the government fully understand the position we are in as a rural authority in delivering the services that residents want. We need help in the short term, but we need them to understand as well the long-term reality that rural authorities are facing. So let's go forward together, because I don't want politics in it. I think we need to put that Shropshire story together and to be there arguing with government that we need that help in the short term, and we will come out of it.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to add anything else to this? Yes, Rosemary, that's fine.
Sorry, it's a very small thing. I didn't realise my page had gone on to the next bit. Technical failure on my part. It was just really a question to say that what we're looking at in the MTFS in this report, want to ask really, that is the worst possible scenario, isn't it? Yeah, so whatever we manage to do, we the council, Shropshire Council manages to do to transform, should chip away at that very unpalatable scenario. Is that right?
Thank you, Rosemary. Roger.
Yeah, as I said in my written right at the start.
We have several departments that are responsible for bringing in money that have been seriously hollowed out. So that council tax isn't, and bad debts are not being collected as efficiently as they should be. We need to find ways to make sure that happens. All the legal work that goes on behind those scenes to make sure we get that money in is actually hampered at the present time. The finance department needs to be going through every other department and giving us assurance that that money is being spent well. So some of the money that we're borrowing is going to have to be put in there to turn a lot of that round, because our mantra as a council now has to be that we have to increase our income and reduce what we spend. But as James has said, some of that, those basic services and those services that we don't have to provide, we need to look at in great detail, because some of those services, if we cut them, and we do need to look at impacts across the board, if we cut some of those where we could just take them out because it's not a legal requirement to deliver them, will impact on those statutory services that we have to deliver, and some of those things are within leisure. So there's a really difficult balance here to make sure that we are helping to reduce revenue in other places, as well as reducing the spend where we really don't have to spend it at all. And that will be painful. It will be painful across a number of different areas, but we just have to do it. And if we don't do it and a commissioner comes in, they will do it, and we won't have that balance. And if they send a commissioner in, it will cost us a lot of money, probably 3 or 4 million, which we will then have to pay interest on as well. So it's much better that we do this and we do it together to have a really, really good look at how we can make services efficient, get the best out of the contracts we have, and the comments around procurement, but also contract control, are a very, very important part of what we're doing to make sure that we get the most out of the money we have to spend. Highways is a statutory spend. Highways does have money coming in from the government, which is ring fenced, but we have to make sure we're using that as well as we can. So the reviews and the contracts and so on that go alongside that are a vital part of making sure we're as fit a council as we can be with the money that we've got coming in. So looking at all the budgets bottom up and looking at how we're spending, making sure that we've got the right contracts in place and that we've got the best value out of all of those is a really important part of that, because any organisation that's been going for a number of years will have areas which haven't been looked at properly. So absolutely everything will be looked at. What I will also say is, this doesn't sound great for anyone, but when we get to the next paper, there are things that we can be doing for residents across the board where we need to make best use of money. But we also need to enable our staff, not only in numbers, but also in training, to be able to do the things that we need them to do, which may well be bringing in grant funding and using other people's money to deliver what we need, but also working with our partners to do similar things. So this is going to be a long, hard road. And I must say, I do resent that we have to borrow money to do this. And when we're charged an interest rate that will end up costing us more than the amount of council tax we have coming in. The money that we're going to have to use, borrow to transform, change the way we work, make sure we've got the right staff, change the IT so that it's much more efficient and we need less people to do some things. We can change the emphasis on things. It's going to cost us to do all of that. And it may well cost us around 12 million a year by the end of the second year. And we know that the council tax this year will only bring in 10. And that brings us back to those points that were made earlier, that we're now borrowing money to deliver the services we have to deliver. And we really need our MPs to be lobbying on that interest rate, because if we can have a holiday from interest for a couple of years, it would make a fundamental difference to where we're going as an organisation. And this isn't about us, the people sitting in this room. This is about the people out there, our residents who are paying council tax, and some who don't pay council tax, who actually need the best services that we can deliver and that we can deliver most efficiently. So, lots of work for us to do with our MPs and across the board, because without that and without all of them, we're in a difficult place. But when we have big cities having MPs now saying we can't vote for this, we now need our rural MPs, because it's not just us. Herefordshire is in a difficult position. I could name rural councils across the country that's in a really that are in a similar position as us. Some not as bad, many not as bad as we are, because we were already in a difficult position. But that's exactly what we need now. It's got to be a joint way forward. And Dawn knows that we don't bring people into this organisation, and we don't use consultants if we can possibly help it. But because of, as Rosemary mentioned, voluntary redundancies that may in the past not have been well planned, we have lost a lot of that expertise, and it's going to take us time to grow our own. But we do intend to grow our own. We do intend to use our train people across the board, so that we're bringing in apprentices and using our apprentice levy for ourselves, because we need to do that. It is difficult to recruit. And this is about making Shropshire a nice place to work and a nice place to live. So I will now go to a vote, and the next paper has some more good news in it, as well as some bad news. So can I take this to a vote, please? All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Right. The next paper is the draft financial plan as well. And I will ask Roger to present this one, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Or Leader.
I mean, not plan, it's the capital plan, sorry.
I'll keep this introduction quite short, because I think the previous paper actually really puts the council's position forward. So this report updates the strategy agreed by the council in February 2025. A number of changes are required following the updated financial situation as the year has developed. A final version will be presented to the council, asking for its agreement as part of the budget in February. We have sought to prioritise which improve the council's financial position. That is what we need to do immediately. As shown in the previous document, the council needs to concentrate on those schemes which help to deliver its operational and statutory compliance responsibilities, and are listed in 1.3 in the report. It is being recommended and shown in Appendix A that a number of schemes that were approved in 2025 report are reviewed, and most others are paused. In Appendix B is a list of approved schemes, and which again are under review or paused. The review is ongoing, and any further changes will be presented to council for consideration in February, when we should know from government how much money we can possibly borrow if it is needed. As stated a few minutes ago, we will incorporate feedback from the public consultation, which has just finished. The aim is to ensure the council's capital programme can support the financial stability of this council. To do this, we are using the principles, as I have said, set out in part 1.6 of this report. I ask the Cabinet to agree the recommendations set out in 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. And please note what they say. As the leader just said, there are things we need to do over and above what we statutorily required to do, because they have repercussions elsewhere within the statutory provision that is provided. I move it, Leader.
Thank you, and I will second. Do I have questions, please, around capital plan? Dan.
Thank you, Leader. The capital strategy approved by the previous Conservative administration in February last year was ambitious, because Shropshire deserves ambition. We invested in infrastructure that would generate jobs, attract businesses and serve residents for generations. Projects like the Oswestry Innovation Park weren't reckless spending. They were income generating investments designed to strengthen our financial position long term. The Oxon and North West Relief Roads would unlock economic growth across the county. As a Conservative group, we will continue to lobby our Conservative Shropshire MPs to continue to make the case for Shropshire Council on its projects. But I guess my question is, on those projects that are on pause, what confidence do you think you have over the next couple of years that some of them might be unpaused and go to ongoing? Thank you.
Roger.
Thank you, Leader. Some of the projects we want to take forward and are paused and reviewed, just so that we do not start borrowing now. We may need to borrow in future years, but we need to get over the hill this year and also next year to start putting processes in place to improve the sustainability. The Oxon Innovation Park is a good example of where we want to take it forward. We are being prevented because National Grid are unable to supply us with power at present, but we are pressing ahead with that, because I think that's important for Shropshire and for Oswestry to take it forward. The Oxon Link Road, that has a possibility of improving the situation, but we are looking hard at the money that is needed to actually do this, and whether any other ways could actually do what it was originally proposed to do. So that's why it is paused, just so they can be looked at, and we will see what we can discuss with government and other bodies, how that can go forward.
Rob.
Yeah, I think in Appendix B it refers to transport capital spending. We are in receipt from the Department for Transport of the local transport grant that accounts to about £41 million of capital over 4 years. It also has an allocation of 1.5 million of revenue. The problem with that is that currently, in accounting terms, those sums of money are all swallowed up in the paused North West Relief Road project. We are waiting for the government to give us an answer, as the leader has been waiting for since May, on that topic, to allow us to actually come up with what the people of Shropshire want to see done with that money. I don't want to see, personally, all of that money which has been allocated for the whole of Shropshire swallowed up by one project in the middle, on the outskirts of Shrewsbury. I don't think that's right and proper for our whole county. It should be invested across the county. We are currently undertaking work on the new local transport plan that was paused previously. Officers working very hard to get that going again. That will look at how we invest across the whole county. But the problem we have is, as we stated on the previous item, we are waiting for these answers from government. They are tying our hands behind our back by not answering the questions that we need answers to. So I want to see us bring, hopefully in February, that's what it says in the paper, that we hope to bring some more detail in February, but that is reliant on that answer from the Department for Transport and MHCLG. I wish I could say more, but I want to see us investing in smaller projects that benefit all of our residents across the county, not really, really mega projects that swallow multiple millions of pounds.
Thank you. I now have Andy Hall.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to draw members' attention to Appendix D, which is the Education Place Planning Phase 4, representing a 24.5 million strategic investment that directly addresses the needs of our growing communities and future-proofs our education infrastructure for the short and medium term. The core mission of this phase is clear: to uphold our statutory duty in providing sufficient school place for every child in Shropshire,
The 13 projects detailed in this report are not arbitrary. They are the direct data-driven response to increased demand for housing growth across key areas, including Shrewsbury, Market Drayton and Whitchurch, and the new development in Ironbridge. Crucially, this is fully funded, unlike other projects in the county. This substantial investment comes from excellent financial news for us. The total estimate cost of the programme, including the 10% contingency, is fully funded using capital reserves already available to the authority. This investment aligns perfectly with the new direction for Shropshire report, investing in sustainable, high-quality education infrastructure. Furthermore, by expanding local provision, we're enabling more children to be educated close to home, which brings positive benefits in reducing travel times and distances, directly supporting the council's climate change policy and active travel agenda. Phase 4 is a decisive step that ensures our children have the best places they need, support growth across the communities, and demonstrates our commitment to securing the highest quality education provision in Shropshire.
Thank you. I think the most important part about that is that we're using money that's coming from developers, but most of the money then we have brought in from the Department of Education to make sure that those places are being delivered. Okay, Rosemary.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of comments really about specific projects. I mean, I agree entirely with Councillor Wilson about the North West Relief Road. You know, if only that hadn't all happened, the council might be in a very different position. My understanding is that the road is being reviewed as a general review of roads nationally. So I think for us to expect a separate answer from the DFT on that is probably not going to happen. That's my understanding of the story on that. I don't know if that's the case as you understand it.
I can answer that bit. Up until this point, we've had change of ministers and so on.
Yes.
And MHCLG and the Department of Transport had not been talking to one another about this. They are now talking to one another because of an intervention of Helen Morgan on this occasion, but I know Julia has done work in the past as well around this. So the change of ministerial roles had caused a hiccup. Yes. And it just stopped. And nobody had understood the impact from DFT on our budgets for MHCLG. They are now aware, and we have letters to show that. So let's hope that is progressing much more quickly.
Yeah, well, let's hope that's helpful. I just really wanted to ask, I mean, certain of the projects that were put forward late in the last administration, such as swimming in Shropshire, that was referred to by a public questioner earlier, and it's a concern, must be a concern for us all, that it's an excellent project. It provides swimming in the county at competition level and so on and so forth. Obviously, it has to be paid for, and that's where we've hit the problem. But we've spent 2.2 million on progressing it so far. Now, I know that it's often with a large project like this, it's a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Will we get funding? We need to scope it before we get funding, so we need to spend money. But the dreadful aspect of that is we could end up without public swimming access in the county with the quarry. I know Councillor Owen talked about trying to support the quarry far better than perhaps we have in the past to make sure it isn't closed for long periods. But that is particularly worrying, and I just wonder where we still got large amounts of money sitting in SIL that could be brought forward for any of these projects that we consider to be essential. I know that's under review at the moment, but you know, there's money there that's for these kinds of things. And I just wonder if we could access anything there.
There is money in SIL, but there's not necessarily enough money in SIL, which is the issue. And we are eking it out across the county where it can be delivered, and it will be part of the review on how we can deliver some of these things, and it has to be because I'm acutely aware you cannot have the county town with no swimming provision for its schools, which is a statutory obligation. We have to find a way through that, and it isn't a viable option just to farm it out to anybody else who's got a swimming pool, because that cuts a lot of the population out. So there's a big piece of work to be done about that. I have Alex and then Dave Walker.
Yeah, I think the important point on that is we will explore all options with the SIL review, which is ongoing, and we plan to change the way that works reasonably significantly. I think part of what we're very keen to do is make sure that SIL and those place plans, which are linked to SIL, and the capital plan are linked. At the moment, the link is tenuous. Often bits of SIL go into the capital plan, often bits of capital go into occasionally bits of capital go into a SIL project. They very rarely link together. Actually, given we're often talking about, two crossings that might be doing in Collinwood, for example, or whatever it might be, it's silly that there are two different plans with different bits connected. So we will. One of the options that I think went to scrutiny about the sports village in particular did include SIL funding. In fact, it's just the level required is huge. I think the point that Councillor Owen would probably make, not to speak on his behalf, about the Quarry and Sundorne, there is the cost of borrowing that 29 million, or the vast majority of it, even if it was smaller, will outweigh any saving on the leisure contract from it. So it will mean the overall cost of that provision in Shrewsbury is higher. The Quarry has significant issues and almost certainly needs some investment in order to expand its lifespan. But the chance of that costing £29 million or requiring that level of borrowing is very low as compared to the certain costs of incurring a really large amount of borrowing there. And if you look at the Appendix C, which has the general fund capital receipt forecast, what we're also seeing, just regarding Councillor Thomas's point about ambition, is that I think we were ambitious in the sort of way that a lemming might be ambitious approaching a cliff. We have no money to do that, and there was never going to be any money to do that. So I don't know why we were planning around doing that.
Thank you. I will take Dave Walker, then I will go to Duncan on screen, and then come back to David Basma.
I was going to defer to Duncan because he did have his hand up.
Oh, right, okay. Duncan.
Very kind of you, David. Yes, sad news on the Cambion, but I won't dwell on that too much. What I was going to say was I was contacted yesterday by the manager of Oswestry Bid, and I've only got her word for this, but it seems to check out. Roger will know about it. We've got a business in Oswestry that's grown very, very significantly. They want to purchase their building, which they rent from the council. It's on the disposal list. They've been 5 years trying to get this agreed. There's £1 million sort of value, and we're not able to get it over the line. And so my question is, are we doing enough to make sure that when we have capital assets, which we've already declared a surplus, we're getting the capital receipts in for them quickly? Because that will obviously help the capital programme.
Thank you, Duncan. And you've just exactly answered why it is we have to invest in our staff, because many of those departments that deal with this, not least legal and so on, are very understaffed, which is, thank you for highlighting that. Roger, would you like to add something?
Yes. There are other areas within this council where I have been approached by residents wanting to buy, wanting to contribute money, pay bills that they have had invoices for, and having difficulty. And the leader then highlighted exactly one of the problems that we have within that department is having enough staff to actually do it. And in fact, in your area, I'm talking to a company this afternoon who wants to talk to me urgently about the situation they are in. But I don't know if it's the same one that you have, but if you will ask them to get in touch with me, I will really, really push that project forward that they are interested in, to see how it can happen now and not happen in some time in the future. We do need the cash in now, and anything before the end of March is obviously very welcome.
Thank you. David Walker.
Yeah, no, I believe what Roger said. We need as much as we can, as soon as we can, whether it's in the year or next year, or building in the budget for long term. And in terms of having an ambitious capital strategy, that's fine, but it needs to be realistic. It needs to be achievable and deliverable. And part of the problem we've got with the general finance of the council is that there's been over ambition and not enough planning about how to deliver the savings we need and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of things tied back in itself. But in terms of SIL, generally, from what I've read, in some places the government want to reduce the impact of SIL on progress of development, which isn't necessarily helpful, because national highways are saying they've got no money to do any infrastructure for 15 years. So the demand on Sill is only going to grow exponentially. So that means in terms of planning, we've got to shift what it does and the leverage it gets. If you look at it from the point of view, it's never been reviewed properly since 2012, and it's been uprated by inflation, but house price inflation has just gone way beyond any of that. So we've got to make sure that as it's reviewed, it's fit for purpose in terms of charging and the application of stuff, to make sure projects move forward. And there are signs of progress that many years being unlocked to allow projects that have been held up to actually progress. And there's various on the highway side of things as well. So hopefully the more we can do with the right kind of capital that helps with the revenue side as a priority, and we make sure that the priorities of the council are all about delivering the right stuff to give us the maximum leverage we can, and that in a very vulnerable position we're in, then we're going to be in a better, more sustainable position.
Thank you. I now have David Basden.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's been a very difficult and depressing debate in the main, I think, apart from Councillor Andy Hall's contribution. But I would just like to, there is a bit of good news. And if you look in paragraph 7.12 of this report, you'll see that the Department of Transport in November announced that highways infrastructure funding allocations were going to increase to 34.7 million in 2026, but increasing to 49.7 million in 29-30. There will be more details in February budget reports about what we're going to be doing. But this is good news, and there's also an incentive element to this award, which we in Highways are gearing up to make sure that we can satisfy all the demands that government's making on us. So yes, look forward to a bit of good news later on.
Rosemary.
Yeah, just to ask about that, the current year's increased financial settlement from the government on roads included an incentiviser element, didn't it? Did we manage to get our mitts on that?
Yeah,
so to speak.
I will come back to you on that one, Councillor Dartwell. We're certainly gearing up for that, but I will get more details to you.
Right. Anybody else got anything else to say, Roger?
Only a quick one is that, picking up the report itself, I would ask that 7.14 be looked at, and it says during 26-27 further due diligence will be undertaken on the paused schemes in the capital strategy. So paused, so that we can see how we can take some of them forward, because it is recognised how important it is for the different parts of Shropshire. Thank you, Leader.
Right, thank you. So there's some good news in that, the way we use Sill, how we review that, how we get that in, how we phase it. There are lots of things that we can do so that we can still do things with capital. But one of the major things we are going to have to do is work differently and bring in money from other sources, go for grant funding where it's available, and be much better at bringing that in, because in the past we haven't been very good at all. So sometimes we will be able to achieve these things through a different route, and it won't be our money and it won't be borrowed money to do that, because we just can't carry on borrowing. The 39 million, which is paused at the present time, which we keep referring to, had we not paused that and had to borrow another 155 million, you can see what that would have done to our budget. We would be in a really difficult position then, because we're now looking over the next 2 years of borrowing 71 possibly, depending on the 39 and 130. So this begins to now put everything in context about where we've come from and where we're going to. So it has to be a new future. It really does have to be a new future, and it's about upskilling our staff so that they can look at other alternatives to bring money in when we haven't got it, so that we can unpause things. What I will also say is we are going to be doing a really urgent asset review so that we know exactly what we have there that we could sell. But what we are not going to do is have a fire sale where people think that the council is vulnerable so they can actually offer us half what something's worth. It's not in our interest to do that, and we have to be really careful about getting the best value from a site or whatever, from whoever. But working with organisations who want to buy buildings and so on is one of those things that we do need to speed up. We do need to backfill staff so that we can do all of those things where it's in the interests of our council taxpayers, our residents, to do exactly that. And in many cases it will be. So this is all part of that ongoing review, but we have to make the most of what we can do, because we can't just sit here in doom and gloom and do nothing. We have to be as proactive as we can, and we have to get the best value out of everything we spend for the future. So can I move to the vote on this? We have 3 recommendations at 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the Shropshire Hills National Landscape Management Plan and the new Shropshire Hills National Landscape Advisory Committee terms of reference. I'll ask Councillor James Owen to present, please.
Thank you. Obviously this, as described, is a report of sort of 2 different parts. The management plan, it comes out of the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000, but effectively it's how over the next 5 years partnership, like partners, especially things like the council and other voluntary organisations, are going to or could invest to improve the sort of offerings that this area, this national landscape does offer to not just visitors to it, but also the people who do live there. And I think it's important that this management plan does start to really look at the fact that identified there's communities within that national landscape that also need to have their needs sort of met within, not just having no developers, etc. I think it's also important that they are focusing on ways to expand areas of biodiversity, focusing on decarbonisation and flooding, etc. in the area. There's a good focus. This is just a plan. There are no binding, like Shropshire Council doesn't have to do what's in there. It's advised that we do, and we'd hope that we can find funding. But again, that can come through borrowing, but it would have to be external. But hopefully we can implement as much of this plan as possible. And then the partnership structure is changing because it's been in place since 1993 in various forms. I think it's currently up to 36 members in total with a number of stakeholders, which is quite unwieldy. And therefore the new terms of reference reduce that joint advisory committee between Shropshire and Telford down to 12 members, and the ability to invite in various stakeholders from elsewhere. So in general, I'm pretty happy to recommend to Cabinet that we do approve both recommendations, as I think it's important for both the national landscape and its governance going forward.
Questions, Ruth?
Thank you, Nina. I'm really pleased to see this national landscape plan here. Most of my division along the west side of the Long Wind is in the former AONB and in this new area, the national landscape area for South Shropshire. And I really welcome Councillor Owen's comments around the need for people to also live in that landscape and have sustainable development. That means that local people can afford to live there, because they play a very big part in contributing to the maintenance and sustainability of that very landscape that they're part of. So I really welcome this. I think it's extremely important from a tourism aspect as well, which is a big part of the local economy. So I think this is excellent, good news, very good news, excellent plan, and being really pleased to see this go through.
Thank you. Does anybody?
Okay, we very much support restricting big developments in the area of outstanding natural beauty. And I know you said that it is going to facilitate some development there, or you indicated that it might do, but it actually doesn't seem to read that way. And we are concerned that it could choke off all developments. So we have some serious concerns that this could end up breaking up our rural families, as when the young move out, they cannot find a home locally. Small-scale local development for local people, particularly affordable rural housing, can be a good thing. We're trying to grow our local and rural economies. We need to support rural tourism and farm diversification. This will likely require some kind of sensitive developments, but this policy seems to make this almost impossible or extremely costly. Now, we support the number 7, the restriction on the renewable energy in the area of outstanding natural beauty. In fact, we'd go further and not just put solar arrays in non-prominent positions. We wouldn't have them covering Greenbelt in an area of outstanding natural beauty at all. My final point is with regard to our farmers. Now, we really need to support our farmers and our rural economy. Shropshire is completely, it is such an enormous part of what and who we are. Our county isn't just a pretty picture. It looks like it does because of farmers. It's a living, breathing, working environment. Point 9 indicates the desire to repurpose productive farmland, thereby reducing land available for food production. And personally, I want to eat as much homegrown, locally grown, high-quality British food as possible. If not carefully balanced, these policies may accelerate farm closures, the loss of local grazing culture, and long-term decline in agricultural communities. So I'd ask you to bear this in mind. Thank you.
I have Dave Walker.
And in terms from the local plan perspective, there's a lot of discussion going on to address that very specific issue you raised about making sure small communities are still sustainable and there's actually development things to, and I've talked with other members about that specifically. I was at Upton Burnell Parish Council last night talking to their concerns about things. So it's important that when we do the local plan, it's based on genuine need and not just a numerical need, and we've actually tried to get a lot across council working to make sure all the bits of the council are all feeding into what that need actually means, rather than just throwing out numbers at a problem. So I just thought it was worth throwing it.
Thank you. And I was, and James knows, is very vociferous about actually making sure that this plan included development across the AONB, or the National Landscape it's now called. And furthermore, the National Landscape cannot block all development. It's not even in law a statutory consultee. Ruth.
If I may come back in response to Councillor Husman's comments. Living in a very rural area, and most of my division is, actually, apart from 1 or 2 small settlements, there are some very good schemes that have been supported by the National Landscapes Partnership and formerly the Shropshire Hills AONB around farming and protected landscapes. Has been very successful. The Applonny Farmers Groups, the Longmin Commoners, they are doing a really good job of maintaining and keeping that land sustainable whilst delivering home locally produced food, and I think that's really important to note. And if you look at any of those on the National Landscapes webpage, there's some really interesting information around the Applonny Farmers Group, which have done a lot of work with the Lake District area particularly, and the farming and protected landscapes. There are regular meetings with farmers, and a lot of them do some really very good work, particularly in the headwaters of the Clan Barrow.
Absolutely. Has anybody got anything else they want to add to that? I've been on their former iteration of the National Landscape before this came forward for many years, and have fought very hard to make sure that it looked at people living in those landscapes as well. A good chunk of my division is also in the area, and actually, we do have building going on across mine. The real problem we have in the south, which is the Clun division and the Bishop's Castle division, is that the pearl mussel is, and the Clun catchment is stopping all housing at the moment, and we're hoping that there may well be a way forward through that in the near future. And some of the work that the National Landscape Partnership is actually doing is alongside improving water quality with farmers, so that we may get through some of that. The other piece of work, of course, is a lot of work that we need to do as an organisation with Severn Trent. So this is a management plan, and it's not the be all and end all of planning across the board. It is the way they are working, and it has to sit, as David says, within our local plan, and that's where a lot of work is going on at the moment to make sure it delivers, because many of us with chunks of national landscape in our divisions are very concerned. So, in which case we had a proposer. Do we have a seconder? Alex, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, I think maybe, can we have a quick comfort break now, just for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda because there's still quite a lot to go. Wonderful. If we can go back to the agenda then, please. Our next item on the agenda is the Bass Church Neighbourhood Plan Area Designation. And David Walker, I think you will be presenting this.
Thank you, Chair. It's another relatively straightforward one. We've already had a couple of these, and there are other councils in the process of progressing their path to getting a neighbourhood plan. So we'll probably see Osprey popping up before too long. This report seeks approval for the parish area of Bass Church to be considered as a neighbourhood area for the purpose of preparing a neighbourhood development plan. The identification of Bass Church parish area as a neighbourhood area responds positively to the Shropshire Plan's objectives, particularly healthy economy and healthy environment. The purpose of a neighbourhood plan is to shape and direct development by providing detailed planning policies for an area which build on the strategic policies of the local development plan, which is currently Samdev until the next one emerges. It is the officer recommendation to proceed with agreeing the parish as a neighbourhood area, and there's no reason from my perspective why that shouldn't happen. I'm happy to propose it.
Okay, thank you. Would the local member like to come and talk to this? Rob Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Robert Jones, the councillor for Brighton and Bass Church. So I'd like to speak in support of designating the parish of Bass Church as a neighbourhood plan area. At a difficult time like this, when Shropshire residents face increased uncertainty and worry around the potential impacts of uncontrolled and unsustainable development, neighbourhood planning can offer our communities the opportunity to influence how our towns and villages change and grow. It strengthens our democracy and it empowers our communities. For residents in Bass Church, it can give us the chance to shape how and where growth happens, set locally specific design expectations, protect valued green spaces and prioritise needed local infrastructure, whether that be the expansion of GP capacity, school places, safer roads, or our ambitions to reopen our railway station. It can enable development that is genuinely sustainable and in keeping with the character of our parish. Designation of the plan area will enable the parish council and local residents who've come forward and given their time to the process to move forward swiftly but sensibly with drafting a plan that can gather the support of local people. So I ask the Cabinet today to approve the proposed designation and also to ensure that there's continued support from officers to Bass Church so that it can move at pace. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions? Anything anybody else wants to add to this, David?
I need to say I spent nearly 2 hours talking to Bass Church Parish Council, which was dominated by a large number of public there about specific applications. And it wasn't as challenging perhaps as Shifnal when I went there, but for them the next stage will be making sure they've got the steering group, and certainly I'd encourage as many local people as possible to participate in that, because it will only be a good plan if it's driven by the local community and delivers the needs that they need, really. So the more they get involved, the better.
Great, okay, thank you. Anybody else? You've proposed, David. Alex, are you seconding? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a recommendation for the Much Wenlock Neighbourhood Plan Review to proceed to referendum. So I'm sure it's David Walker again, but we will come to Dan afterwards.
Thanks, Chair. The report seeks Cabinet approval to proceed to the local referendum of the Much Wenlock Neighbourhood Plan Review. In March 2023, Much Wenlock Town Council resolved to review the existing Neighbourhood Plan 2013 to 26 to bring it up to date. The new plan has now progressed through several stages of consultation, drafting, and has been subject to an independent examination. The examiner commented the plan for being clear and a pleasure to read, and for the thought and effort that's gone into its creation. It has struck the right balance between intelligibility to the layperson and the use of technical words to ensure precision. If Cabinet votes today that the plan can proceed to a local referendum, should more than half of those voting in favour of the plan being adopted, then full council will be asked to formally make the neighbourhood plan to form part of the statutory development framework for Shropshire.
Thank you, David. Dan.
Thank you, Leader. I'm speaking now in my capacity as both Shropshire Councillor, the Mayor of Much One-Loch, but also my capacity as Chair of the steering group, which has produced this plan with the Much One-Loch community. I'm here to urge the Cabinet to approve the recommendation before you today to allow Much One-Loch Neighbourhood Plan Review to proceed to a local referendum, with a suggested date of 19th of March as our preference. Much One-Loch is a town with a strong sense of identity, history and purpose, and it has embraced the opportunity to update its existing neighbourhood plan. Back in 2013, Much One-Loch created the first neighbourhood plan in Shropshire, leading the way for communities to shape development in their parishes. That plan has served the community well, but it runs until 2026, and it's now time for this new one to take its place. At the heart of our approach has been the delicate balance between preserving Much One-Loch's unique character and heritage, whilst ensuring our town remains vibrant and fit for purpose in the 21st century. Our steering group, comprising both members of the public and town councillors, has worked tirelessly to craft policies that reflect the aspirations and concerns of our community. Those whose families have been here for generations and those who have moved to our town and villages more recently. This document represents the combination of listening carefully to residents, landowners, community groups, and a range of local organisations. We have aimed to reach the balanced, practical compromises that are both viable and achievable within the planning framework. As noted in the examiner's report, our plan meets the basic conditions, and we've worked tirelessly to ensure our policies are not just aspirational, but practical, viable, and in conformity with the Shropshire local plan. The people of Much One-Loch, like me, are passionate about their town. They've shaped this plan and they're ready to vote on it. I respectfully ask that you approve this recommendation and allow us to take this step forward. And I thank the portfolio holder for his kind words about the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions about all of this? I must say, where communities want to plan for their own futures, this is a very good thing, both for this one and for the last one. Because they are best suited to know where development should occur and how it should occur and so on. So I'm a great supporter. It's a great shame that the capacity in many of the rural areas is such that it's a big piece of work when you do this, and you need quite a good sized parish council to be able to undertake it, which is the problem really. But excellent, well done. We have a proposer and a seconder, and there are three recommendations here, 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the next paper is larger and is the provider services redesign in brackets in-house. So Ruth Houghton, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'll take the paper as having been read, but I would like to say that this is one of those pieces of work that's been ongoing along with others within adult social care around making the best use of the resources that they've got and delivering good value for money. So it links to the earlier financial papers as well. So the proposal, and it's in three parts, is that we first of all look at Helena Lane, which is a PFI building in Ludlow, which has a day centre for older people where there are about 7 users, all bar one self-fund their own care. And the proposal is to close that particular day service and support those individuals to access similar services within the community. And you'll see in the report that we've set out what some of those might look like through the Ludlow Hands Together, the Ludlow Assembly Rooms and other support services. The second one is to look at Aquamira Day Service in Shrewsbury, where there are a number of users who could be supported in Abbotswood also in Shrewsbury, a couple of miles away, where there is capacity. That's both of those services are quite expensive to deliver because of staffing costs and building costs, and in the point of Aquamira, the provision of a hydrotherapy pool, which is not a statutory requirement for a council to deliver. And then the third stage of the report is to go to a wider consultation around a wider look at the in-house services provided by this council. So looking to make sure, and it's set out in 4.8 and 7.1, to make sure that the services offered are flexible, really person-centred for individuals, so they can support very clear pathways into employment or supported employment for people who have those aspirations, or to retain some element of traditional daycare services. So there's 3 stages to this. The consultation would be for 8 weeks. We're open to start in early February, and in particular for those at Helena Lane and Aquamira, there would be drop-in options, letters, one-to-one discussions with individuals, their families and advocates, and we will put all the correspondence for the adults with learning disabilities into easy read format as well. And then there'll be the wider consultation on each of the other day services across the centre, across the county. So the report, although it initially focuses on Aquamira and Helena Lane, Ludlow and Shrewsbury for consultation, it is a quite county-wide report because there is day service provision across the county. You'll see that an equality impact and health assessment has been undertaken, and that would be updated again following the consultation to make sure that we address any inequalities that might be emerging. So we're looking to go ahead, subject to agreement today, with talking to users and their families and advocates, as I said, on a one-to-one basis from the beginning of April. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes on preparing that consultation. We, of course, only get to a certain point before we spend a lot more resource time on designing that into an easy read format, which does take a little while. So hence a couple of weeks before we would start, if it is agreed. So I move the recommendation. I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Alex. Other questions, please? Thank you, Rosemary. You are a local member.
Yeah, so I should say that I am the local member where the Aquamira facility is, and I'm aware of a number of residents who use the pool, people with special needs, well, not obviously, but with people with special needs, and I just want to state concern for them, and hope that I totally accept that this is not part of our statutory obligation to supply the service, and that it isn't viable. I totally accept that, but I can't help but quote the concern that I have for my residents.
And thank you, Councillor Battle. That's not unexpected, because there aren't many hydrotherapy pools in Shropshire, but we as you clearly said, and I've stated, we don't have that statutory duty to provide that, and I would hope that the user of that pool who enjoys swimming will be able to access other swimming resources.
Thank you. Has anybody else got anything they want to raise on this? Again, this is one of those difficult decisions that we're having to make because they're not statutory. And it's one of those things that actually, we don't make decisions like this, we will not be viewed well by MHCLG. And that's hard because we are talking about people and people's lives and the way they live. It's very hard, and none of us would want to be doing any of these things if things were different, Ruth.
Thank you, Neil, and it is a difficult decision, but what the service have worked very hard to do is to mitigate the impact on the individual. So, set out in the report are a lot of other services, particularly in Ludlow. In fact, I think we were all pleasantly surprised when we started to dig around to see what was available, and could deliver the same at a much more cost-effective outcome, and at the same time support those community-based services to be more viable too.
And that's one of those things when we're making difficult decisions, that we always look at the mitigations so that we find other ways through. And sometimes, as we found in Ludlow, there are lots of other things that people can be doing. They may not be quite the same, but actually we need to be bringing those together and having a really good view of what is available to people. And that's about signposting as well for individuals. So there's lots of work going on, but still a difficult decision for those individuals. So I have a proposer and a seconder. Those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. So we now move to exclusion of the press and public. And so to resolve that in accordance with the provision of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 and paragraph 10.43 of the Council's access to information rules, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following items.